I mean, my hot take is that Stay Alive is not a video game movie. It's a Final Destination movie.
Oh, okay.
That's like saying that Final Destination is like a plane crash movie. Like, to me, it's
That's
like,
such a good point. Are you Matlock? Are you?
It's like for the first 15 minutes, it's a video game movie, and then people just get killed off in real life, and you never see a video game again.
Greetings, friends! Welcome back to the Messed Up Movies Podcast, a podcast celebrating movies and filmmakers that embrace the unhinged, the insane, the outrageous, the off-kilter, and the all-around kind of messed up fun you can't take your eyes off of. Welcome back. This is a Filmmaker Friday episode, my personal favorite thing we've added to the show since. Brief business here at the top. Please be so kind, go to the Messed Up Movies podcast Patreon, support the show there, get more cool stuff, follow Misfit Parade, misfitparade.net or com by the time you hear this. I don't know if we're in the 90s or the modern world. You'll have to see. And make sure you follow Misfit Parade on the YouTube with the rest of us cool young people. We are so fortunate today to be joined by our friend and filmmaker, Michelle Iannantuono. Welcome back to the show. You will hear Michelle on a future episode talking about Repo, the genetic opera. Absolutely fun episode. So, Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself, where people can find you, and the movie that you made? You made two, but the newest movie you made.
I've made more than two.
That's true. Good point.
Yeah, I'm Michelle Iannantuono. I'm a Pisces. I live in South Carolina. Yes, I'm a filmmaker. I made the movie Livescreamers, as well as the movie Livescream, as well as Detroit Evolution, which is a gay fan film, and there's other things too. But mostly, if you're listening to this, you probably may have heard of Livescreamers. That is the one that came out most recently on Amazon VOD, on Vimeo, and will soon to be out on my new site, octopunks.tv, for everybody internationally, which will include my entire library and Livescreamers for $4.99 a month. So
Absolutely incredible.
Getting into I've had a Patreon as well for like 6 years, and it's been pretty good, but we're just trying to divert and do our own thing for a while, and gives us a little bit more freedom and trying to stay relevant. That's
right. Massive entrepreneurship coming your way. From your private island, Octopunk's Island. Yeah. No fly zone for you normals. So we actually met. We had made a short film. He Sees All About a Dirty Priest.
Love it.
And we got to go to Genre Blast. Yeah, and it was our favorite festival. We still talk about Genre Blast, and we didn't have it this year, and it really left a hole in our heart. Can't wait to go back, right? Such a fun festival. We met so many wonderful people. You and your entire cast was there, too. We had so much fun. Pierce from your gang, he was like my little buddy for the whole weekend. We were glued together. I still think fondly of him all the time, and just I would just like to sit on the couch with my arm around him and just have a chat. I miss him so much. If he's listening, I love you. One of the most fun. But I was also imbibing a ton that weekend. And I remember Heath and I think I was in the hotel room. I had my shirt probably on or off. I don't know. Trying to get some AC. And he's like, I really want to go check out this Livescreamers movie. I was like, what's that? And he's like, it's like people playing a video game whore. And I was like, ugh. I just had pictures of Uwe Boll in my head, right? And I was like, I don't know. And I was like, fine. We walked in, and I kid you not, your movie fucking blew my face apart. It is so unbelievably crafted. It's so fucking scary. The acting was great. I was fucking shocked how good this movie was, right? And I'm a person who didn't grow up. I never watch live streams of people doing things. My kids always do. I just missed a whole subculture, I feel like, right? And it felt so immersive and interesting. It truly is one of the most unique films that we saw anywhere on the festival, and really anywhere I've seen since. So would you like to talk me through, how did you come up with this idea and the pursuit? It's I'm imagining it was an enormous fucking mountain to climb.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, it is a found footage Let's Play, essentially. So you have 8 performers, each on their own webcams, that was all filmed simultaneously. So we ran 8 cameras at once for every take. And then when people die, we get rid of their camera.
Yeah.
And so that's in the upper left hand for the whole movie, and then the rest of the screen is custom built gameplay footage from Unreal Engine 5. So it's their gameplay POVs as they're going through this haunted mansion, and as they go through all these different types of games and types of levels. If they die in the game, they die in real life, which unfortunately means that Stay Alive gets mentioned a lot on my Letterboxd page. And in the press.
I will say this for those wondering, this movie kicks the shit out of Stay Alive.
I mean, my hot take is that Stay Alive is not a video game movie. It's a Final Destination movie.
Oh, okay.
That's like saying that Final Destination is like a plane crash movie. Like, to me, it's
That's
like...
such a good point. Are you Matlock? Are you...
It's like for the first 15 minutes, it's a video game movie, and then people just get killed off in real life, and you never see a video game again. What? My movie has a video
That's
game.
That's such a good point. I never thought of it. You've unraveled a movie I will probably never watch again the rest of my life.
I've seen it once, in fairness, but I really just I was sort of disappointed by it when I saw it ages ago, because I was like, oh, I was hoping it would actually be more of a video game movie. But the way Livescreamers came about is actually a sequel to a movie called Livescream that I made in 2018. Livescream is a similar found footage, let's play, custom gameplay concept. But instead of it being multiplayer, you have a single performer named Gunnar Willis, who was on screen for the whole film as a basically one-man show. What he has to interact with instead of other characters in the room with him is he has a chat that goes simultaneous to his gameplay. So you have a few characters who show up in the chat. If he dies in the game, people in the chat die, the followers die. And it's just a much more like low budget, lo-fi, and more simple execution of the concept. It's also thematically a little bit more simple. You know, there's some emotional core to it for sure, but it's very reverent. It's not very critical. It's very much like, I was a connoisseur of Let's Plays at the time. I say that like it's a fine wine. I'd watched them for like 5 straight years at this point. It was my primary form of entertainment. And so, it was just sort of a love letter to Let's Play culture and game culture. And then I went and did it for myself for like 2 or 3 years. And then I got an audience of my own for a couple of years. And a lot of really cool things came about that. I mean, I've seen my writing tattooed on people's bodies. Among other things, I've gotten to meet people in person who've come up to me and, they've given me art of myself. I've had some of it hanging behind me on the wall. I've been really fortunate to have all of this.
Do you have a preferred place where people tattoo you on their body, or?
So far, it seems like right here.
The forearm's a big one, yeah.
The forearm's
Put me on the, I will take the Florida tattoo real estate of the lower back, if you're wondering, if anyone wants to do that for the show. That's where we like to be. You can have me and Heath side by side.
But yeah, this is amazing. But there have also been some kind of negative experiences with this too, because when people get really passionate about your work, sometimes they get too passionate. Sometimes there's boundaries that are crossed. And also on our end, not just me, but also the actors who've worked with me and have kind of a similar or even higher than me in some cases level of exposure and of fandom that has kind of cropped up to support them in the aftermath of some of our films. We've had to sort of learn how to not cross boundaries with the fans. And in the case of one actor I worked with, didn't understand those boundaries very well and had to end up being sacked, which sort of influences some of the stuff that happens in Livescreamers. So all those stories were basically put into Livescreamers as this trauma dump. It's basically I like to say the Livescreamers is I just went through my Twitter drafts and just wrote a screenplay.
There you go.
I had a lot of stuff I needed to get out, and I did, and now I'm better, and that's amazing that actually worked. Because people say, "Oh, I make films for therapy," but then it's kind of cope because then they actually don't get any better. I actually got better. I feel a lot better and a lot more at peace than I was before I made Livescreamers. So it was definitely the movie I needed to make at the time, and it's interesting to see the response to both of them now, because there are people who like the first one better, even though it's so much more low budget. It's so much more simple. It's so much less pretty, you know, it's so much less refined. But they're like, well, I like that it was nice and made me feel happy. And this other one's mean and loud and angry.
Yeah. It's almost as if the internet has gotten worse as time has gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's the thing I was most struck by with your movie, right? Because just looking at, like, assumptions of what you think this movie will be, and immediately audiences will be fucking stunned by the video game world that you handcrafted, right? This Unreal Engine creation is staggering to behold throughout the film. Like, really fucking melted my face off, right? I think the thing I was so impressed with, right? I write terrible scripts that we then make into movies. And even that is hard. I was so captivated and would love to hear how you approach the process. Essentially, you have 10-ish characters, right? On and off of their own little webcam setup. Yeah, 9. How do you keep that cinematic narrative tension, right? Because as the movie unfolds, beyond just watching the video gameplay, these people are unfurling dark secrets. Their truth is coming out about how they view each other, their positions in the group. And I found myself, as the movie went on, gravitating from the beautiful video game at the center of the frame up to the webcams and being so absolutely stunned by the cinematic narrative quality of that, which felt unachievable when the movie starts. You're like, how the fuck could you keep me captivated to that? So how did you approach that in the writing phase?
I just sort of naturally like ensembles. And I've wanted to do one for a while, and I guess I really haven't gotten a chance to do one other than I did a very small ensemble short called Seven Deadly Sins that I'm hoping to extrapolate out into a bigger IP franchise thing. But yeah, this was the first time I really got to like work with a big cast, and not just have like 2 leads and a bunch of supporting characters, but really have every character be significant enough to where like it kind of might be a little bit of an Alien thing where you're not entirely sure who the final person is going to be in the end. And like there's one in particular where you sort of assume that person is the natural fit for like the sole survivor, or if anybody's going to get out, it's going to be them. And it is maybe not.
It should have been Pierce, damn it. Justice for Pierce. No.
Really, I think the approach was, I think every character kind of gets a level of the game that is about them in a way, or that challenges them. So being able to unfurl their backstory through gameplay in some way was often a ploy. So like you have the text message simulator interactive game that, you know, reveals somebody's secrets. You know, there's a TV in the game that then starts to like play videos of a person and unveil their, you know, sort of secrets. I think stuff like that helped me be able to combine what was happening in the game with the cinematic kind of narrative and the unveiling of the secrets and the interpersonal drama. Really, I think the driving force for writing that ensemble was something that I kept in mind from the very beginning. Was what I wanted to do was play the audience. And a lot of people in my Letterboxd reviews, I just don't think that they get it, or that or they respond to it, but they think it's either an accident or they think that it's a bad thing. I don't know if I mean, you can't control how people engage with your art or whatever, but
once you send it out, it's theirs, and you just
the intent was that essentially you start off, you sort of see everybody in their streamer personas, and then somebody dies, and then they kind of actually become like who they really are. But all of them are sort of meant to be a little bit morally gray. You know, it's like none of them are meant to be completely insufferable to the point where it's like, these people, I want them all to die. I think a lot of influencer horror is like that, where they just are cardboard cutout characters. They have no inner world. They're just there to be cannon fodder. I wanted you to at least sympathize with most of the characters. There's a couple where it's like, oh, no, fuck that guy. But for most of the characters, I wanted you to sympathize. But I tried to do this thing to, who knows if it was successful, but What I tried to do was present you with a character, get you to like them enough, and then pull the rug out.
Yeah.
And basically be like, just as you're starting to like that person, then you discover something about them that recontextualizes them. And to the point where, like, even at the very end, when you're just down to a few people and you're like, okay, sure, like, we're down to the final girl, we're down to the final guy, we're down to, like, these are the heroes of the story. We've whittled out all the villains. We have one villain left and now he's gone. So, like, we whittled it down. These are the people who deserve to be the survivors. They're the good guys, right? Even then, I wanted to be like, nope, there's still some more rugs to pull. You still don't know the full story. And the reason I did it like that is because I wanted to basically show to the audience that stop forming parasocial relationships with people you don't know. Like, you think you trust these people on this screen because of what you see. Yeah. But they all have something else underneath the surface. And so, you know, some people walk away with this being just like, I hated everybody, the 1 star. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if hating everybody is the right response. But it is sort of meant to be like, yeah, you're not supposed to trust anybody.
Yes, it's like my dad taught me, just because the Hooters waitresses signs your receipt with a heart and an exclamation point, doesn't mean you ask her on the date, son. And I was like, Dad, why are we at Hooters? It's my birthday. Neither here nor there. That's a whole other pod. But no, I was so impressed. And again, to your point, the thing I latched onto, right? Because again, I write, I act, I do stuff like that. The richness of it and the way you took the time to craft and every 9 characters, right? It felt like the ploy would be the video game will do it. I'm going to phone in at least 3 of these people, right? They're going to die pretty quick. Why am I going to give them any richness? And it's all there. I was so blown away by your achievement in that respect. I thought there was a lot of precision to that because again, it's just one of those movies that as it unfurls, you're just like, I can't fucking believe how awesome this movie is. Thank you. I'm serious. I'm not just saying this because you came on our world-renowned podcast. It really, it's that extra level that I think a lot of independent horrors, and I'm going to say this, this is going to sound rude, I don't mean it to, but gimmick horror, right? Like, this movie's not gimmicky, but it has kind of a big, like, eye-catching, this is a video game you created, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like movies I see like that so often just phone in everything else because the big center element, right? The hero element will carry the movie. Mm-hmm. And you did such a beautiful job of not falling in that trap. Was that hard? Did you ever be like, I could phone this back and just have more video game moments? Was that ever a devil on your shoulder moment?
No, because when I made Livescream, I knew back in 2018 that I wanted to make a sequel called Livescreamers, that it was going to be multiplayer. I knew how to amp up the stakes. I knew that I wanted to ditch the chat element. You know, just all the learning experiences, things that I had kind of experienced after the first one. I was like, oh, I have some ideas for how to make this bigger and better and more interesting. And I outlined the whole script. I designed 8 or 9 characters, and I was like, you know, this. What if I had somebody die by steam, which I still haven't gotten a chance to do? I just
a very underrated killer. Yeah.
Yeah, I had all these ideas for like ways I could kill characters, more games I could homage. I think even back then I was like, let's do Resident Evil this time because I didn't get to do it with the first one. And I outlined the whole thing, and I was like, okay, well, this doesn't say anything, and I don't care about any of these people, so I'm just going to shelve this for now. Yeah. And it took me a couple of years before I was like, oh, now I know what this movie needs to be about. Right. And that's when the passion for the project came, and I was able to take people that I knew or elements of myself or people that I'd seen, you know, in the community and sort of craft the characters more to be about them and be about their story and all these experiences that I've had. And yeah, I never would have made the movie if it was just, you know, phoning it in to say a thing even, or to just like, to just be a gimmick. Yeah, absolutely. If any movie was the gimmick, it probably was Livescream. I will say, like, that one was very much like I was very latched onto the idea of the novelty of making a Let's Play horror movie. And then, like, Scott and his story was kind of just sort of came out through the writing, and you know, it was only that one character and this one relationship that he has. So it wasn't wasn't too much of a mental stretch to be able to give him just a little something. But he is a little underdeveloped. Everybody in Livescreamers had to be so developed because there's 81 relationships in the movie. And I told my actors this, and if you watch the behind the scenes doc that's on the Blu-ray, it's like 2 hours of, our shoot where basically you see actors talking to each other and basically being like, what's our backstory? Like Dice and John going aside and being like, why do we hate each other? Like, what's the relationship actually like? And like, Gwen and Mitch, going off to the side and being like, what is our dynamic? Like, I'm sick of you being a sexist and, all this sort of stuff, but you also have dirt on me. I don't like my husband.
Yeah.
All this sort of like all these little dynamics.
I got to live that with your cast outside having cigarettes. I was just standing there watching this play out live. It was incredible.
Yeah, and they loved it. They loved being in the sandbox to just play and all being in that room on the day and doing these long takes where they could really bounce off of each other and feel the room. And yeah, so I think for me at this point, character is the most interesting thing I write about. I really try to build whole worlds. I come from fan fiction, I come from fandom, so that is just how my brain thinks. I like to make stories that feel like they are fan fiction of a world that you have, of a canon that you aren't familiar with yet.
Right.
But that like put so much love into the characters and so much like little details and lore and that sort of stuff. And I think you're right. I think a lot of indie horror doesn't do that for whatever reason. They very much look at their movies as, I want to tell a story sometimes, or I want to do something with filmmaking, like maybe I want to do an 80s throwback because I feel nostalgic for something, or maybe I want to do found footage because I love found footage and I want to see if I can. There's always some sort of like motivation. Usually characters are kind of like, well, I have this character and her name's Jane and she's an accessory of the story that I'm trying to tell. Yeah. And that was my first 3 or 4 shorts. I mean, that was like how I used to make movies too. It's like, oh, I have a cool idea and I guess people need to be in it.
Yeah, right. The amount of scripts that I have read, I used to be a screenplay analyst, where it's like, Jane, 20s, huge boobs, bubbly, knife stabs her in the face. And you're like, all right, I guess there has to be somewhere to put the knife. I think this is actually an interesting place to transition. So I think one of the things that comes through so clearly is how a part of this community you feel, right? Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about your start with Octopunk Media and kind of the gaming journey you were on, and what was that transition from that into this kind of independent genre filmmaking, and what kind of lessons do you think you've taken in to create this kind of unique voice now?
Oh, wow. So Octopunk was officially formed when I made Livescream, so that was 2018, although I retroactively say Octopunk is everything that I've done from 2016 onward, because that's my adult, that was basically when I got back into filmmaking as an adult. Mm-hmm. And I still published those 3 shorts and consider them under the umbrella. So I was basically just making shorts for nothing. I made Livescream for nothing, but it did get some festival play. It was nominated for a Rondo Award somehow. I still don't know how that happened. Literally, I still don't know how that happened. Who nominated me? I just want to talk.
I want to be friends. Find me.
I just want to know who you are. So yeah, like Livescream, it got distribution. I got an MG. Like it really, in hindsight, it did better than Livescreamers in a lot of ways. Just wild how far the industry has fallen in just 5 years. So it kind of put me on the map a little bit. And around that time, I played Detroit Become Human, which I loved in spite of its warts. I just love motion capture and choice-based games and all that stuff. It's like, even when it's bad, it's good. It's like pizza. So yeah, I fell ass over tea kettle into the fandom. And I started shipping these 2 guys who never met in the game, and one of them had like 10 seconds of screen time. Again, as you do in fandoms. Exactly. You basically just invent like, oh, there's this one guy who's a huge jerk, but he's hot, and he was in it for 3 scenes. And there's this other guy who he would definitely hate in real life if they met, but what if they kissed?
Great, yes.
and then, and then I read all the fanfic, and there's like, oh, Gavin Reed redemption arc, and and at first it's just like, I just hate Gavin Reed and I want to see him punished, and then it's like, oh, actually I want to see him redeemed, and actually I relate to him, and he's me, and he is traumatized and sad and wants to be loved even though he doesn't deserve it. And so I wrote a bunch of movies about those two and made them, and that is what sort of got us views on YouTube and made followers and all this sort of stuff, and gave us the community that we kind of have now. But we haven't made a Detroit movie in like 3 years, and we're still here. We still got Patreon, we still got crowdfunding campaigns. I've hosted events in Europe and New York and Detroit. Wow. Which people have come to, which have been really fun. So this has like become a very, very privileged experience that a lot of folks who don't have a studio support ever get. To be able to exist in this space where it's like, well, I don't have to be a content creator, so I don't have to like pump out stuff every single day, which I was really like worried about for those first couple of years. Like the first couple of years when we first got this surge, I very much had to come to terms with how much my output could realistically be, because I was like, well, now I got to put out like 3 shorts a year. And I was just going and I was just putting out all this stuff. I was always crowdfunding. I was always producing. And a lot of that made it into Livescreamers. A lot of Mitch's arc and a lot of Mitch's, Mitch is the leader of the group. A lot of his stuff that he deals with, the unsustainability of like, how do we pay for things? All of that was stuff that I had firsthand experience with, trying to be like, all right, well, they're here, but their attention spans are short. How do I keep them here?
I really latched onto that because it's one of those, like, I'm not a part of a video game community like this, but it felt very true to the independent film scene. Where it's just this like, guys, we have to go harder. It will pay off. And you see the breaking and the frictions and the underlying things that aren't said because the god of the algorithm must be appeased every day.
Yeah, and I was streaming 8 hours a day or 8 hours a week in 2020 after Detroit Evolution came out, which is I stream half an hour a month now. Like just in comparison, to the 30 to 40 hours a month I was streaming, at the time. I streamed an entire playthrough of The Last of Us. Like, I was doing all this gameplay. I was streaming Legos. I was streaming tarot. I was streaming like our improv show that, is actually going to become like a real show now. All that sort of stuff was born in that year after Detroit Evolution came out. And because I was throwing spaghetti at the wall. I was like, what can I do to just keep people here? Just keep people engaged. Just keep us on the top of the algorithm so that people don't forget about us, so that YouTube doesn't forget about us and bury us. All this sort of stuff. And I also, I was able to see through my algorithms, which thumbnails got clicked on and which didn't. I was able to see which Instagram posts got liked and which didn't, the demographics of the people in the images of the things that got picked and what didn't. And all of that was very eye-opening too, and kind of made it into Livescreamers. But in terms of finding our own voice, we're a very queer company now. Like that's sort of just like came out naturally, because I think I came out right before my first Detroit film came out. So it was around that time. And, we have a very international fan base as well, which has kind of been interesting, that I've had to, I've realized that there's certain things that I have to think about that I never realized before, like subtitles and like translating my movies and making them more accessible to people in other countries, and international distribution, making sure that if I distribute a movie that's not just available in the United States, all these sorts of things are part of like Octopunk's general checklist whenever we make something, is like the 50% of our audience that is international, are they actually going to be able to see it?
Yeah, it's interesting. It sounds like these battles of, I think a lot of us fear falling into the we are just content creator trap.
Yeah.
And neglecting the kind of artistic pursuits that we all had, right? These like bigger things we want to accomplish and say into the world often fall by the wayside, because how the fuck do you get people to give you money or listen if you're not part of the fucking content machine? So it sounds like you learned a lot of very valuable, kind of through being in the wars of that. How do you balance the things you learned in that space moving into this kind of independent film scene, which has such a different financial incentive structure?
I mean, I've been sort of fence sitting for like the last couple of years. It's always like this, the devil Kronk and the angel Kronk on the show.
That's right.
Where,
Ilsa's gonna love it. Yeah.
Right, like Angel Kronk is just like, you could just stay independent forever and make movies with your homies and like, just be free spirit. And Devil Kronk is just like, you need a studio movie. You need to be in the industry. That's the only way to do sustainable
We only
income.
have devils, dude. We're trying to sell out so fucking hard now.
And like, there is part of me that's just like, at this point, after everything I've been through, I am sort of like, yeah, no, I'm not going to make it in the industry. Like, the industry is not for me. Like, it's not going to happen. I won the George R. Romero Fellowship at Salem Horror, and I was able to get mentorship from several awesome people. Two of them, the main ones, are filmmakers who have made studio features. One of them wrote Summer of '84. Another one of them directed The Ranger and Sacrifice Game. So like they've had really great success in horror. And they were both like, yeah, so here's a long list of all the projects that like failed or fell apart in pre-production or like died in development hell. There was like one story about like a ghostwriting experience where it's just like didn't get paid to write like an Academy Award winning or like nominated film. Like all of this like shit that you have to eat in order to make like one feature is absurd. And both of them had worked as assistants and as producers and like in Hollywood, like in the actual industry for other people for like a decade before they got to do any of their own stuff. And I've been working for almost a decade as an independent. I've made 3 features and 7 or something shorts and won grants of crowdfunded money. I've done all this stuff. And yet I'm still at this point where it's like, oh, I would be considered an amateur if I walked into the room of a network TV show or a network writer's room or Lionsgate or Blumhouse. Like they would look at me and be like, oh yeah, you're underqualified. You haven't done anything real before. And it's like, and part of me is just like, fuck them. I don't care anymore. Yeah. But then the other part of me is like, I cannot keep bootstrapping this forever. Like I can't.
The eternal goddamn struggle.
like I'm in post for a short right now that is it is a 12 to 15 minute long grant funded motion captured short. It's animated entirely in Unreal Engine. So I'm back to Unreal, but instead of emulating like a video game, we are making a photorealistic animated short. It is a cyberpunk southern queer romance tale. And so I'm building the entirety of like whole city blocks of Charleston, South Carolina, but like it's 2059, so everything is like futuristic on top of that. Like all the costumes, all the extras, all of the vehicles, the main characters are in the likenesses of their actors who played them in mocap for both face and body. I have all this animation to clean up. It is just me in post. And I just go to work every day, open Unreal, and I'm like, all right, back to the salt mines for the movie that feels like it'll never be done.
It is it's the freedom to actually do what you want with people you cherish and value versus the, goddamn, if I could just do one of those, I could fund like X amount of years of my own shit. My friend MJ pointed this out to me the other day. They were like, it's something I've noticed about you is that you always have the ability to get yourself resources. Like you always have the ability to win a grant, to find money, to do the things you want to do. But you're always just slightly more ambitious the amount of money you get. Yeah. And I'm like, that the way. Yeah, this is true. I'm basically always, the way I do the math, I do the girl math of, I got $20,000. That's enough to do this amazing thing that should cost $100 if I put $80,000 of my own labor for free into it. And it's like, no, we need to stop that. We need to basically make a $5,000 short and pay myself $15,000. That is the math that we should be doing. But no, it's always $100,000 of unpaid labor on top of the money that I get. Oh, it hurts. I feel you. Everyone we talk to, we all kind of skirt around this same, like, how do we fix this and just take over? But yeah.
Yeah. They're right though. My ambition's always, because I never want to backslide. I never want to just like phone it in and then do it the easy way. It's always like, wow, I have this awesome idea. Ooh, I bet I could scrounge up just enough.
Yeah.
And then hate my life for a year as I try to like push it out.
The misery index of like, I'll just take it on. It'll be fine. We'll muscle it through. That's something that you always are optimistic about at the idea phase. And then halfway through you're like, my past self was such an asshole.
Dude, there's a song lyric. One of my favorite bands of all time is AWOL Nation. And like they're more than just Sail. Like they're great in concert. They have a lot of really great songs. And there is a song he does with Rivers Cuomo called Pacific Coast Highway in the Movies. And there is a lyric that I slightly want to get a tattoo of. I don't have any tattoos, especially referential tattoos, because you never know if somebody's going to turn out to be Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just or J.K.
Like all
Rowling.
of those babies that are named Daenerys, and you're like,
Severus. Yeah, it's just like there's so much like, oh shoot, whenever you reference like somebody else's work. But if
you get a tattoo of me on your lower back, I promise you, my moral code is powerful. That's it.
You're already canceled. So if I was to get a lyric, this lyric from Pacific Coast Highway in the Movies is my silver screen, my misery, my love, my defeat.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, that about sums it up, Aaron.
It really does. God damn. Well, to that, okay. So getting away from this fucking morbid business talk, something a little more joyous, right? So we talked a lot about your writing process and the love and the care in the building this whole world. Walk me through, how did you get into Unreal Engine? And can you just, at a layman's level, because I'm sure none of us can grapple it all the way, explain the amount of fucking work it must have gone into? Because you, I'm assuming, are hand animating all of these elements to build the locations. You have to design characters. You have to make interactive game elements within the fucking movie. I can't even begin to fathom the amount of work that went into the video game portions. So how did that come about?
So I will say I get a little bit of a step up from the sense that I don't have to model and texture anything. And that's not to say I don't lay out all the game levels myself. I build the levels in Unreal, but like the floor texture, the tiles on the floor, or like wooden planks on the floor, or the wallpaper color, and the clothes and that sort of stuff. That is something that already exists. So it's just sort of bringing those things into Unreal and basically being like, okay, well, I've got 30 asset packs here of columns and architectural pieces and props and set dressing. And it's sort of like if you were in a prop warehouse or something, and it's just like, all right, Griffey, go make a scene on a stage. Like, go build an entire set. And here's the wood, here's the planks, here's the wallpaper, here's a bunch of props in the prop warehouse. Go do production design. So that's sort of the starting point, but in a digital space. I got started in it in right before Livescream as sort of a ways to like, I know I wanted to make a video game Let's Play, found footage movie, and I knew Unreal Engine was free. And so I was like, well, that's a free tool. And if I could maybe just use some pre-made assets and, I could just use this program, I could actually make video game levels, and then I don't have to actually make them really playable. I just have to make certain things go off at certain times, kind of like a fun house. I just have to put triggers everywhere.
That's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
And I could just basically, walk through it and capture my gameplay, and that could be that portion. And my first hands-on experience with it, though, was about 6 months before that. I've had this Fallout fan series in development hell since 2016. At this point, I'm still trying to work on it. It's all very that is a whole arc. Because it went like right now I'm basically at the point where I'm like, oh, I think I want to actually port Fallout 4 into Unreal and do it in Unreal. For the last like 6 years, I've been trying to do it in Fallout 4's engine, but back in 2016, I was going to port it to Unreal and do it in Unreal. So it's really just gone all around. But I did.
The amount, how do you sleep? Like the amount of hours I'm just imagining. I was like, even in 6 years, goddamn.
Oh no, that one's so funny enough. We have all 10 episodes. It's a 300-minute thing. That's why it's never been done. We have all 35 voice acting. We have all the voice acting. The voice acting's been in the can for 2 years. But it's daunting. But I basically opened Unreal for the first time, did some tutorials to try to learn how to do things for that series. And I took some Fallout assets and I ported them in, and I built Vault 111 in Unreal, and I was like, oh, this wasn't so hard. You know, this program's actually super intuitive, and like I said, free. So when I had the idea for Livescream, I sort of naturally was inclined to be like, all right, this is the tool. This will work. I can work with this. So I very much brute forced my way through a few hours of Unreal in order to make Livescream. And then when it came time to make Livescreamers, we are talking a completely different ballgame, because at this point, number one, all of the characters in Livescreamers are made in MetaHumans, which is a character creator that Unreal provides for free. They're high quality, like realistic models of people that you can download. They're like 3 gig a piece. Each of these, they take up so much space and so much processing power. They're so unoptimized because they have physics hair and just all this stuff. And I had 9 of those on screen at some points in time. I ended up having to upgrade my graphics card not long into the process of making Livescreamers, because Unreal literally couldn't run what I was trying to do with all these metahumans. And I also wanted it to look like a AAA game.
Lord. Yeah.
I wanted it to look good. I wanted it to be well lit. So instead of taking 8 weeks, to make this game and put it together like I did on Livescream.
8 weeks?
For the first movie.
Oh, okay. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. First movie was really quick and dirty. 8 weeks. This one, I took a year. Like, it took a year to get
That's still stunning, honestly. Like, did you have to, because you have some pretty incredible monsters in the movie, too. Were those kind of pre-assets Frankenstein together, or did you have to, like, draft these things?
So the Siren, which is our main monster, is a custom asset made by Dustin Mills. I hired him for the express purpose of doing concept art, designing, modeling, rigging, and texturing, and animating the Siren, because I wanted our key villain to not be a stock asset. Yeah. I really wanted her to be an original creation. And we've sort of...
Stunning, by the way. Stunning fucking monster.
We were like, we need to make a sexy demon, because if it's going to be Resident Evil...
Are there any other kinds? What?
I was like, if we're going to do a Resident Evil homage, the monster has to be fuckable. That has to be, like, part of it.
Of course. Why would I not run out of the Raccoon City if I didn't want to have sex with all of these monsters? Unbelievable.
So yeah, he did a great job on that, and it's also just like a really cool person in general. And so he was off working on that while I was sort of building the house and building all the different levels, and it was complicated because there's so many different types of level in Livescreamers, like so many different gameplay mechanics and different...
Yeah, this isn't like the first Saw movie where it's like one torture chamber. This is... I mean, it's an expansive mansion with many floors and levels. And
every room they go into kind of looks like a different style of house, too, in a lot of cases. Like, the bomb room looks like it belongs in a completely different place. Jeremy's room looks like it belongs in There's, like, a dungeon. There's a whole basement that they run through and looks, different. So all of that, had to be built and imagined and put together and optimized and
kind of paced out with the narrative you're doing with your live actors.
And composed. That's something people don't really think about in terms of... I had to make sure that I wasn't going to make people motion sick, because there's so much cutting and it's all first-person POV in the gameplay. So it's like, how do I not make people motion sick? How do I make sure that I know that people are looking at the right part of the screen that I want them to look at? If I want you to be looking at the gameplay and that's more important than the webcam, how do I draw your eye to that instead of getting distracted, and vice versa? And I started to notice some things that pull the eye when I didn't want to, so I had to sort of change where I was putting the camera how I was presenting things, and you'll
Hot
notice
demon.
if you, yeah,
Hot
yeah,
demon.
hot demon.
Yeah,
Hot
there
demon
you
comes
go.
on. You don't want to be looking at Davey in the upper left-hand corner. Like, no, demon's here. Like, you got to do the leading lines down to the
Right. God damn. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, all of that work really is such a unique and wonderful movie experience. I'm thinking back to me and Heath this July with fishing line around a 12-foot rubber penis we made, and being like, look at us doing movie magic. And now that feels so quaint, so Flintstones compared.
I mean, like I said, I can't do special effects on my own. You know, I had Matt Patterson did all my VFX because
We
I
could
was
Captain Planet together and have a hot 12-foot penis demon. Neither here nor there. Talk me through something that tickled me as a wannabe actor, right? I dabble here and there, but a lot of what we do, to your point, a lot of independent and short horror films, right? It's like me and one other person or a prop or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. It's such a different kind of acting than this ensemble, and especially because you guys filmed it all together in the room, it kind of has this really fun stage play quality to it, right? So I thought the acting seemed so fucking fun and fresh and energetic. Walk me through, how do you approach casting and rehearsing with an ensemble this large?
Well, luckily, due to the nature of how it was filmed, you know, with just stable webcams and everybody's in their own frame, and they cross frames into each other's frames a few times. But for the most part, their frame is their domain. Like, that is just them. And in that case, we did a lot of rehearsal on Zoom because we all live apart. And that actually translated okay.
Yeah, it did.
You know, usually when you do a Zoom rehearsal, it's like the bare bones. Like, it doesn't really work. It just is there to get like line readings. But this actually, we were able to, for the most part, get a pretty close approximation of what we were actually going to do. And so we could kind of tell in rehearsals which scenes were coming together and which like were clunky or just didn't feel right. Or which we were like, oh yeah, we really need to add more y'all getting up and moving to each other's cameras in the scene when we get there on the day, because that is like, otherwise this isn't going to work. I think the big oneer where all of the cameras are on screen at the same time and you see them going into each other's cameras right after the first character dies, and they're all freaking out, and they all have their own ways of freaking out, and you can kind of follow any person's camera and be like, okay, so that person's having a panic attack, that person is like disassociating, that person is the only one who's paying attention to the game still, that person's trying to like unlock the door and get out, like, and run. So like all that's happening at once. And that was one scene where we were like, yeah, like we really had to rehearse it. We actually did a rehearsal the night before we shot, where we got everybody in the room and we were like, we need to block this. Like, we need to block what this is going to be, because with all the different moving parts of, you know, we want to make sure you guys aren't stepping on each other, but at the same time, there's never a moment where you're not reacting. And that's just true of the whole movie. Some of the actors, it's the first movie I've ever been on where the crew was so chill, like having the chillest, easiest time, and the actors were exhausted by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Really great change of pace. The actors were just like, yeah, I basically did 15 minutes. I acted my guts out. We took a 5-minute break, and then I had to do it again. And then we did that for 8 hours.
No talent trailers for this cast. Yeah.
Meanwhile, the script supervisor is just like on his third bag of chips and is just sitting in his chair. Sound guy is just
That's
like...
right.
Sound guy has literally whipped out the BTS cam and is just taking pictures of everybody.
Hell yeah, dude. You're creating trauma for them to use. That's a classic director technique.
Very Kubrickian. But yeah, they felt like they didn't get a lot of downtime. Like, they were, because there was no resetting really. It was just like, hey, here's some notes. Let's do it again. Like, faster, stronger, higher. Like, every single time we would do another take, they would come together. The scenes would get tighter, and they would anticipate each other a little bit more, and they would hit their marks a little bit more. And sometimes we had previs in front of them, sometimes we didn't. So sometimes they would have like their gameplay POV in front of them to kind of give them cues and stuff. But depending upon the scene, sometimes those cues were useful for authentic reactions to things, and then sometimes the cues were unhelpful because the timing got messed up, and then it just threw them off. So we kind of did it both ways for every scene as well.
Yeah, I was really impressed with them as a unit, because the narrative of the film is them playing through direct, right? They can't leave the game for fear of death. So the only way out is through, right?
Yep.
And watching their performances, and how even you imagine when you cut from scene to scene, they have to immediately match where they were in the moment before. So it has that connective single playthrough experience. I thought the cast just did a wonderful job. So many fun performances that are very memorable. So walk me through. So you made this film. We saw it at a festival, which is where we met. Won Best Feature at the festival, if I remember right.
No,
crushed.
it won.
Oh, sorry.
It won
Didn't mean to rub that in.
Best Screen.
We didn't win shit either.
It won Best Screenplay, which I was very happy about. It was my first screenplay award ever. And then Best Ensemble, which I was very happy for my cast.
I mean, that was a slam dunk, that one. They were so fucking delightful.
Yeah, so really the two, I mean, my
what a robbery, though. I want to recount. I want to recount. No, well, if I was the only one voting, it would have won Best Feature. So you did all this work. You did the festival circuit. That's always fun for, I think, all filmmakers, right? A chance to go out and meet your peers and like actually celebrate what we do instead of those miserable long times between we talk about. So you have this thing, you've gotten out, you've gotten some buzz, people have seen it and are liking it, reviewing it. Walk me through. So you have kind of a twofold strategy right now, right? You have a movie that you're getting out to the world. And you also have created this new entity, right? Via Octopunks, where you are self-distributing a bunch of stuff now. And it feels like the two are re-merging, right? Kind of the content video game thing that you clearly love and came from with these kind of independent studio aspirations. Walk me through your decision to pursue this kind of self-distribution path.
So my two, like, I guess, industry heroes that I've sort of looked up to all my life, industry only, maybe not as a personal level, are George Lucas, who actually seems like he's a good enough guy, probably not problematic, and Walt Disney, very problematic. But like every single time, like the idea of like the Disney empire, the idea of the Lucasfilm, like the fact that he had THX, that he had ILM, that he had Skywalker Sound, that he was able to make this entire like little corner of the film industry that did everything that he needed to make movies. Because I'm pretty sure like the prequels were like independently produced. Like they weren't like full on indie films. Like it was still 20th Century Fox. But like they were like he used a lot of his own money or like raised a lot of his own capital to do
or
it.
Send some of that budget to all these entities I owned and created.
And so like I was always one of my favorite things that I watched when I was a kid in terms of DVD features was there was I wish I remembered the name of the doc, but it was on the Revenge of the Sith DVD, and it was about a minute in the Mustafar fight, and essentially they panned out and they showed this huge like mind map thing, and it was all the different departments in a movie that went into that minute. And so they'll go into costume and they'll be like, okay, well, we've got these 12 different versions of this Obi-Wan outfit, and they're all each degrees of burnt from the Mustafar fire, and this is what, you know, and then,
cool.
And then you got the VFX, and then you've got Nick Gillard talking about like, okay, this is the choreography that I did for the lightsaber fight, and you know, it was a really cool doc that showed like I love like the systems engineering of film, of like all the different pieces coming together to make the thing. And similarly, like with Disney, like I do really like that, you know, you can go to Walt Disney World and you go into a shop and it's just like, this is the Ratatouille section, and this is the Mickey Mouse section, and this is the Moana section.
Yeah.
And each of these movies has like its own rides and fan base and like stuffed animals and all that sort of stuff, and I was like, man, I would love a theme park of Octopunk stuff like this. It's just like
Yes.
I want the Read 900 ride, I want the Livescreamers VR game, like I would love like the theme parkization of the things that I made. Like that is the ultimate kind of like dream vision, right?
So awesome.
So I guess it's just sort of a natural fit, albeit like I said earlier, I mean, I've sort of been that 50-50 of like trying to break through that ceiling of like the industry and trying to Really not for recognition, not for fame, not for validation. I don't care about any of those things, really just for sustainability.
That is the fucking key, right? Like, I always think back, one of my favorite documentaries on just creating art, period, is, I can't remember what it's called. It's that documentary about Miyazaki and his like journey through Studio Ghibli. And he just like, he wakes up at his house and he walks up a hill smoking cigarettes. And he goes into this little house that's just like, you know, his dream palace, where he creates the greatest animated films of all time. Some of the most unique and brilliant stories ever at Studio Ghibli. And he just sits outside smoking cigs and he's like, 9 to 5s, right? And it's like, but he's created this like little hut on a hill that's like all of our dreams. And he just is this guy who he somehow broke through. And Studio Ghibli's this giant monster industry, but he's still just a guy who walks up a hill and goes to work every day, you know? And there's something about that I think is so appealing to all of us, right?
Yeah.
And unless we all become independently wealthy somehow, or one of us, I don't know. We'll have to see. So here's a question.
One of us.
Yeah, it just takes one of us. That's the thing. I'll just buy Blue Sky and we'll do it from there. Here's something I like to ask everyone. Let's say Livescreamers just makes the $1 billion. You are the titular new mogul of the world. Yet. After this pod hits, I'm sure there will be a lucrative flow of cash. So you have all the money in the world. You are now one of the richest people in the world. What movie, IP, what project are you greenlighting? What is the dream project? If someone said you could make any movie you want, right now, unlimited resources, what are you making?
So, do I have to just pick one?
No, you're rich as hell. I think you can do a bunch.
Hell. Okay, I'll do. You know what? I'm gonna do 3 different categories. I'm gonna do a movie, a video game, and a stage thing. I'll be a mogul.
You were built to be super rich. Look at you. You've already got plans.
So if I could make a movie, I would like to get hired to make a Godzilla movie. Great choice. I would like to make a Godzilla movie of some kind. I won't elaborate. I'm not going to elaborate on that. Just in case. Look, man, Simon Barrett logged Livescreamers on Letterboxd. He wrote
That's
Godzilla
right.
and Kong.
Once Livestreamers comes out, you never know.
So yeah, I would love to make a Godzilla. Like, that would be my dream franchise to kind of like work in.
Amazing.
In terms of like dream projects of my own, there's a video game. My next project, I would love to make a video game that is basically Alice in Wonderland with Cthulhu. It's about grief, but it's also kind of got like Shadow of the Colossus like gameplay style. It's got what remains.
That game is so great. God.
It's like if you mixed What Remains of Edith Finch with Shadow of the Colossus in terms of like gameplay. There's like cryptids, there's monsters, there's kaiju, there's
tea parties. It's everything you want.
It's just like a big girl and her monsters kind of like story. And I mean, God willing, I should be able to make that. But it like conservatively, you know, you're looking at $1 million budget. And who knows where to get that on an independent level for a video game. Maybe a movie at this point, but not a video game. So, that would be that's dream project. And then the big dream project that would actually cost millions and millions of dollars, as well as the clout of a billionaire. But again, God willing, I'm still pursuing it anyway, because fuck it. I want to make a 9 Inch Nails opera.
Oh, okay. So I want you to be a billionaire so fucking bad. You're really speaking my language. I actually at one point wrote an Iron Maiden musical.
Nice.
And it was all about this like tribal like people that were taken over by this imperialist thing. And then I labeled it The Klansman because it's a song that Iron Maiden does that I fucking love, and everyone I sent it to is like, The Klansman. I was like, with a K! They're like barbarian Klansmen, not like that. But yeah, I really hope you are a billionaire. This is exactly the kind of things I need in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it outlined, and I know a couple people who like maybe are in the stage sphere, so it's like I'm gonna ask, and we'll see if we can't get in touch with Trent Reznor to help with it. I don't know. I don't know.
What a fucking great idea.
I think ever since so this past year, working on the animated short film project that is currently the albatross on my back. However, it was worth it because not only did I get to direct mocap for the first time, which I've wanted to do for 10 years, I got to direct mocap with Neil Newbon, who was one of my heroes in the video game industry, played Gavin Reed, who I made 3 movies about. So like the person, that's how we met, is like I made movies about his Detroit Become Human character, and he saw them, and I was really embarrassed, but then it turns out he liked them. I was like, I hope you're cool with what I did to Gavin.
Yeah. He's like, that's exactly what I wanted to happen to Gavin.
It seems like that's true. So basically, we just got to know each other, and I was like, obviously he's a legendary mocap actor. He also runs a mocap academy, and I was like, can you come help with this mocap thing we're doing? And we got some budget for you. And he came for a week and came to Charleston, directed my mocap, and turns out is a heck of a nice guy on top of it. And so after that, and also like my birthday was that week too. And like we had this wrap party that was also sort of my birthday party. And I just sort of was like, Neil Newbon's in my kitchen at my birthday party. What's happening? And so, so I was like, after that, I'm like, fuck it, Trent Reznor, Hideo Kojima, whatever. They're just a phone call away.
Yeah. It's insane the ambitions and the scope and the work you are putting in. I'm very impressed. That's awesome.
They're just guys. They're just little guys.
Just guys, dude. They're just guys who now work for Michelle. No, just kidding.
Give me 3 years.
If you were going to give a piece of advice for the next aspiring Michelle who wants to do video games and stage play and motion cap and Unreal Engine, what would be your best piece of advice to someone at the start of this journey?
They're just guys.
They're just guys. Make a shirt. Put that in your web store.
Start however small you have to. That's my thing. I started with $100 and a plate of chicken nuggets and some friends. That was my first short. I made it in my kitchen. And we did it one night, and I got into a couple film festivals, and I met some people, and ever since, I got the bug, and I just kept making, things. And I would also say, like, the more esoteric, if you want to elevate a little beyond that, because I think that's a great place to start. A lot of people kind of get stuck there sometimes in the I'm just going to do things because I can, but not try to grow stage. If you want to grow and you really want to, like, after you're past the learning stage and you feel like you've got a handle on making things, the real piece of advice that comes is get involved in stories or consume media and absorb media and experience media and stories and life outside of watching movies. Mm-hmm. Because I find that a lot of times I'm maybe not the biggest cinephile in the world. My cinematic knowledge and history is actually probably surprisingly lacking. But I also love video games. I love tabletop games. I like theater, depending. And if it's something like Repo or Nine Inch Nails, then great. If it's something like Chekhov, maybe not. But yeah, like I can appreciate live performance. I love theme park rides. I love all sorts of different experiences to show me something new. And so Livescream came about from years and years of watching Let's Plays. And it was me basically taking this other non-film thing that I liked and basically saying, what if I did something with that? Detroit Evolution came out of me loving fan fiction and being like, can I do this in live action? Can I do a fan film version of a fanfic? Can that work? So being able to take bits of your life outside of film or mediums that you like outside of film and trying to have a holistic cross-disciplinary approach. And speaking of Hideo Kojima, one of my favorite creators, legendary video game designer, he is very much like this. And I read his book, The Creative Gene, which is a really great book. It's just like a list of a bunch of stuff that he likes. So it's just basically a to-do list of, okay, read that manga, read play this game. Listen to Joy Division. He loves Joy Division. But music too. Music's absolutely a big influence too. And so essentially he says something in it. He was like, people throughout my career have called me innovative. And I appreciate that they have said this about me. But to me, all I'm really doing is I'm taking all these different things. You know, I read 2 books a week. I listen to music near constantly. My body is made of movies, you know, and it's just how my brain works, because I'm absorbing all these different mediums and ideas, and it's making the connections between them in a way that comes naturally when you expose yourself to different ways of telling stories. It's inspiring.
I love that.
Yeah, and I really resonated when he said that, because I was like, oh, I kind of feel like that's a little bit like what I do. I try not to get trapped too much in this idea of like just being obsessed with movies. There's a lot of filmmakers who are just like obsessed with movies, which is great. But I also find that you end up with a lot of like homages to other movies.
Yes, you're chasing the zeitgeist or the hot thing at the moment, and inherently your own voice gets suppressed. I do that all the time. I always tell people, they're like, why do you play so much D&D? I was like, well, every time I'm writing a new script, I can run a scene in a D&D and see how other players who don't know what I'm doing react, right? I practice characters and voices when I play D&D all the time. And it becomes this lab of just creativity. Right? It's a way to just try stuff out in a world with no stakes. And it also reminds you how fun this stuff should be. So I think that I agree with that. Orson Welles said that a lot. He's like, one of the worst things you can do as a filmmaker is constantly consume films, because then you get pushed down underneath the giants above you that you don't believe you can surpass anymore, right? That's a paraphrase, not an exact quote. But yeah, I think that's amazing advice. Thank you, Michelle. What a wonderful deep talk. I really feel ashamed of myself. I don't work hard enough. I don't know if my mom loves me anymore. Heath, did you have any notes about the conversation?
Just a pure masterclass. I mean, it was really, I mean, honestly, and I'd say from a script writing standpoint too, that last point that you were making, Michelle, about, going out and experiencing the world and not just regurgitating things that you've seen, because that's like what AI does. So I'm going to give my little axe to grind here about the audacity of these like tech moguls. And if I could take my current CEO, who's obsessed with AI and thinks it can do everything, strap him down and make him like Clockwork Orange this conversation, because you would never have gotten to Livescreamers if it wasn't bringing your own experience and letting that inform the story. That's something that an algorithm can't ever do, is have that perspective. So I think that's just great advice, a wonderful lesson that we need to remind people over and over again that that's how art is created.
We will not be replaced by robots. Yeah,
that's right. And then just a couple other cleanup notes here. The Miyazaki documentary, I believe, was Kingdom of Dreams.
Oh my God. It is so, if you ever just want to be inspired, Studio Ghibli tells the most magic, non-structured stories. They are so unburdened by everyone else's stuff, and just walk you through these fucking purely magical, joyful, creative experiences. Watch that documentary. He is not as magical as you would think, and I kind of love that about him. He's not a Wonka-like character. He's a real, like, factory worker, chain smoker type, and it's great.
And I just had 2 more questions for Michelle real fast here. Earlier, Michelle, when you were talking about the interrelationships of the characters, you said 81 relationships. And I'm just wondering, given your meticulousness, were you being literal when you said 81 relationships? Did you actually map that out?
Well, 9 times 9.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
But I will say that I basically told the actors, I was like, look, I'm not writing 81 log lines. Like, you each have 9 of them. You go figure out what your 9 is,
Yeah.
Gotcha,
you go figure out how you feel about everybody in the room, and that'll cover it.
That's right.
Makes sense. Okay. I'll be using AI for all of my math. Going forward.
AI can replace us in math. No one needs to do math anymore. I agree.
And last question, don't feel obligated to answer this very dumb question. But this is, since I have you, I've been wondering this since I saw the movie. What's your take on the sentient game? Is it haunted? Was it created specifically for this purpose? Any thing that you would be willing to reveal about the mechanics of it?
It's definitely supernatural.
Okay.
I don't actually have like a firm backstory of the origins completely figured out, mostly just because I hate when tech horror over explains itself. I can never take it seriously. It just sort of always boils down to, there's this demon who decided to infect cell phones, and it's like, no, please stop, please. Like,
but only T-Mobile, because they have a better plan.
Just skip this. Get rid of the priest in the basement with the giant book. I don't want any of this. I don't want any of this. Just let it be haunted. Just let it be haunted.
Just let things be haunted. The less we know, the scarier things are.
But I will say it's not like engineered. I have a couple people, particularly with the first live stream, who are like, "Oh, it's a dark web thing," and I'm like, "No, it's pretty specifically not. It's not like a person. It's not like a person is sending clowns to houses."
That is a great idea. That is a great idea for a business. A shady, illegal business, but a great idea nonetheless.
We just sent a murderous clown to your house, to this guy specifically, just snuck in conveniently right as this guy died. It's like, no, that's stretching credulity. I remember I had a Letterboxd review that was basically like, it's stretching credulity to think that this clown got in this house. And I was like, yes, it is. Because that's not what was happening.
You would be right if that's what we were fucking talking about. Yeah,
that is unbelievable.
In the not connected to my project world you set up, nailed it. All right, one more question. Sorry, we keep asking you one more question. Eating up all the time you should be working on Unreal Engine. What's your favorite, most messed up moment in Livescreamers?
Ooh, messed up moment in Livescreamers. Oh, I gotta go chronologically backwards. I don't want to spoil the ending, so I'll skip that one. Although that always gets the best crowd reaction. I think there is a character who faces a bomb.
That's the one I was gonna say too.
Same.
Yeah, like that.
That one was fucking wild
Definitely.
in the theater.
That whole sequence is pretty mean.
Well, also you start thinking about, well, who are the people I play video games and how would we fucking fare?
Yeah.
It's very personal, scary.
and I think the aftermath in real life too. The aftermath of like everybody having to just sort of sit there and process what has just happened.
Awesome.
Probably the most messed up moment of the film.
Oh, for sure. Great. That was actually the exact one. I was wondering if you had a different one. Thank you for your time, Michelle. We appreciate the talk. This was wonderful. Would you like to tell everyone one more time where they can go support the causes?
Right. You can find Livescreamers on Amazon if you're in the UK or the US, or Vimeo if you are international. But we are launching Octopunks with an X.TV, Octopunks.tv, starting in February. So you can join there for $4.99 a month. You can see Livescreamers, you can see the OG Livescream, you can see Boundary Breakers, which is our 2-hour making of doc of Livescreamers, as well as we'll be adding new stuff literally every month. All sorts of shows, and also Livescream Remastered is going to come to the platform in probably May. So you'll be able to get that included with a subscription too. If you want to get a discounted subscription, a VIP subscription, or even an eternal membership, the Indiegogo is actually still up through January 15th. You can go to igg.me/@/Octopunks and find a couple options. You can try it for 3 months for $10, and you also get like into the beta, and you get a bingo card where you can get prizes if you get bingo with a bunch of other stuff. We're doing bingo for the whole year. Basically, you can watch all the stuff on the website, and whenever you find things, you can.
I love the high-tech concept with the lo-fi game of bingo.
People love getting stuff in the mail. That is one thing that I've learned.
That is one thing we will never move beyond as a society.
It's just like people love getting mail.
It's everyday Christmas. It's literally everyday Christmas. Who wouldn't love that? Well, thank you again. Go support the cause over at Octopunks. Go see Livescreamers, goddammit. Do as I command. That sounded rude. I'm sorry. That's not Michelle approved. That was just my rage coming out. Just go see it. It's a great movie. You'll love it. If you would be so kind, go to the Messed Up Movies Podcast Patreon page. You can get a lot of cool extras there. Vote on the movies we talk about, extras, all that good stuff. Go follow Misfit Parade at misfitparade.net or com by the time you hear this, wherever we find it. And go to the YouTube Misfit Parade to see our films, which are decidedly less cool than Michelle's.
But more messed up.
But I think we got you there. I think we got you there.